Okay, we're going to get started. And I have a special guest today, Martha O'Gorman. And before I ask her to introduce herself, I will say that Martha is writing helping me and authoring my second book. And we're going to try something different with this book than I've generally seen with other books, in that I'm going to go through about 100 people in my life that I've had work with me, for me, that I worked for, partnered, invested, and talk about the lessons that I learned from each one. And so this is a good treatise on Martha in her chapter in the book. So having said that, Martha, you want to give them your background and how you met me?
Sure. It's been a long time, so I might miss some of the salient points that happened over the course of the last almost 40 years. But I met John back in the early 80s when he was a client of the advertising agency that I was working for. And I sat in on a meeting with him. This was back in Jackson Hewitt days. And that was my first exposure to him, albeit he does not recall meeting me then. But luckily, in about 1987, I was working in an advertising agency, and Jackson Hewitt was looking for a new ad agency, and we pitched the account. And John picked us as the advertising agency, and we started a relationship at that point in time as a client and vendor. And at one point in time, I said to him, you know, there's a lot of money left lying on the table when you're using an ad agency to do your media buying and various other things. And why don't we bring this whole thing in-house and turn it into an in-house advertising agency, which would allow us to keep the commissions on the media and other things that we could do cheaper ourselves. And so that's how it started. And that was 1988, tax season 1988. And we worked through that tax season, and then on to Liberty Tax Service in 1996 when we started Liberty. And I, along with a couple other people from Jackson Hewitt, worked with John to get Liberty Tax off the ground. And we worked through that for many, many years up until gosh, I can't even remember what year it was. But then after we left Liberty, I joined John at Loyalty. And so here I am. And, you know, I'm still standing. So I'm very happy to report that.
37 years later.
Yeah,
And
more than half my life.
You're showing your age both ways.
Yep.
So we started working together, and do you remember what your first title was?
At Jackson Hewitt, it was Director of Communications. Yes.
And then had you had any experience working nationally because by that time Jackson Hewitt was in about 50 or 60 markets around the country?
No, not to that degree. I had worked in, you know, various markets, but not that many all at the same time. So it was a major challenge. And luckily, we were able to hire a media buyer who had worked with John at Jackson Hewitt from the other ad agency. And so she and I were able to get a media buying program in place, which was kind of a new invention at that time. And she and I worked together and were able to very easily, with the help of technology, put the marketing plans together for all the different designated market areas where Jackson Hewitt had offices.
So along the way, you had to learn and improve.
Very much so. Still am, by the way.
Awesome. So do you remember, you and I think alike all the time?
Loaded question, but no.
Any amount of time? I mean,
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I'm totally astounded at the brilliant ideas that you come up with, kind of like you are with the ones that I come up with.
So, you agree with the phrase that if both of us think alike, then one of us is useless.
Yes,
So it's good to have differences of opinion.
that's right. And I'm very glad to sometimes be useless. So thank you for that.
No, you're only useless when you agree.
Right. But sometimes I do. So
Okay.
I can't
So
always argue with you.
yeah, you don't have to always disagree. But thinking back, can you remember disagreement, our first few disagreements back in the 80s, early 90s?
Oh Lord, I can remember several, and I'll pick out the ones that I think are the best example. The first one that I remember, which you remind me of pretty much on a weekly basis, is that when I believe it might have been my very first review, and we were talking about things that, I could do better and improve on. And then you said, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Well, it's very clear to me that when you give me a task to complete, that you already know how to do it, what the answer is, those kinds of things." And I said,
Sometimes,
"Yeah,
sometimes.
well, okay." But at that time, it was usually always because I was pretty novice at the time. But and I said, "I just wish, why don't you just give me the answer so that, I can continue on with the project as opposed to struggling with some of these things that I don't understand or I don't know how to do." And you said, "Well, if I did that, then how would you ever learn?" And so that was my first lesson and our first disagreement, as such.
And and not only would you learn, don't what aren't you going to sometimes come up with different ways to do it that I didn't know about, that I hadn't thought of? So
I think
so
that
both of
happened.
us both of us are going to learn if I don't tell you the way that I think it should be, right? It's a
Right,
learning experience for both of us.
right.
So you sounded like I tell this story like I'm really bragging about you, not right, not critical. I'm bragging about that because I'm sort of bragging that I was that thoughtful, but also that explaining to people how you need to be a great manager of people and helping build people and allowing mistakes, right? I mean,
Well,
do
that's
you,
very true.
so have you made mistakes?
Well, that was going to be my
Okay.
next story.
Okay,
So
next one. So that was the first one I recall too, about 1989-ish, and so next.
the next one, if you'll remember, the bus card story.
I love that story.
Okay, well, that one is just burned into my memory. That I will never forget that. And what happened was we used to buy a lot of transit advertising, especially in this market, in the Hampton Roads market. And we did it a couple years with simplified messages, use of your tax refund in 3 days or less. That tells you how long ago that was. And so the one year, about probably, I want to say it was 91 or 92, um, I decided that we were going to change the design and we were going to, have a new look and feel for our transit advertising. And so I had the bus card designed with a computer, and the message was still use of your tax refund in 3 days, maybe it was 2 days by then. And but used a very unreadable typeface, just to put it mildly. Rounded letters, and the colors, we had different colors on there, still had the branding for the logo, but the message itself was unreadable, as I learned later. So this was a big discussion, and John saw the card and he's like, you can't read that. And I was like, yes, you can. And so this is very creative. This is very creative management, I must say. And I learned a lot from that because I've used it for other people who have worked for me. But he said, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put one card on one side of the bus and the other card on the other side of the bus because they were two-sided. And bring the bus over here and we'll bring all the employees outside and we'll have the bus pull in with your card first, and then it'll turn around and come back with the old card second. And I said, okay.
So the old car being last year's car.
Right.
Last tax season. So it was this tax season versus last tax season.
Correct. And the tax season before, and maybe even the tax season
before.
Do
you remember how many employees piled out of the building that morning?
All of them.
But I mean, how many was it?
Couple hundred, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, but a lot.
Right.
Lot. And so we did that, and the bus pulls in with my masterpiece on one side, and then everybody looks at it, and nobody really said anything. They just, said, well, okay, well, that's nice. And then the bus turned around and came back with the other card, the last season's card on it. And everybody's like, okay, that's great. And then we took a vote and we said, which one is easier to read? And everybody was like, that one for sure. What are you, crazy? Why are you even asking us that question? So it was number one, it was humbling because I used to have a little bit of an ego. And secondly, it was like unbelievable that, why hadn't I thought about testing this before I made this major decision about our branding and our marketing. And the best part of it was it was a $20,000 mistake. And I don't mind telling you that. I'm embarrassed by it, but I learned a very valuable lesson from it. And so after it was over and we were going to change all the bus cards out, it actually didn't cost us quite that much because we had some of the old ones left from the year before. But anyway, I went to John, I went to his office and I sat down and I said, I apologized and I said, I'm so embarrassed and I'm gonna give you my resignation because that's how serious I thought it was. And he said, are you kidding me? You're not gonna quit after I just spent $20,000 on your education. And it was, wave of relief first, and then secondly was just so grateful that that's the way you think. And you think that way about a lot of things. And as you said, your ability to allow people to make mistakes without getting angry or punitive or whatever word you want to use is one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know about you if they haven't worked for you. But those of us who have worked for you, I believe, are very cognizant of that quality in you.
Enough to be clear, and if people don't understand why it costs so much, when you have bus cards, it's like you have to build out this small billboard that you put on the bus. So we had them all built already, and we had to go build them all over again, except for the ones that we used from the previous year. So, and that was back in the 90s, $20,000 back in the 90s. 1991 was like $200,000 in 2024, right? Wasn't.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that.
Well, I want to put that in perspective because some people may think it's only 20 grand, but it was a lot more meaningful to a small company. And then, and it was a big part of our advertising budget. So our advertising budget probably was 150,000 or 140,000. So it was a significant chunk. Do you remember the then the argument we had over the word fanatical.
No, I don't remember that at all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Do you want to tell
Yeah, I
it or do
mean,
you want me to tell?
I'll start out by telling the story the way I and you can take over for then, but the way I remember it is I've been like Martha has and great people are. I've been constantly learning in my career, and at some point I realized that to go the extra mile is even though it's an unpleasant word. I have problems with the word fanatical, and up until the time I came up with this thought in about early 90s, I thought it was sort of Nazism is fanatical. I mean, just it was had all kinds of negative connotations. And I'm sure Martha must have thought that way too. But finally, I decided that in order to be extraordinary, to be head of the class, you had to have not just great, I mean, people would say great customer service. Everyone says that, right? But I said, no, you got to be fanatical. You have to have fanatical customer service. So I introduced that concept at a meeting. And what was your reaction? Do you recall?
Yeah, I said, I don't like that word. It sounds very authoritative and heavy-handed. And I don't think that I don't know if I said this or not, but what I think or thought at that time was that was diametrically opposed to what our culture was. And so we argued about it, and that was kind of the end of it, until I can't remember if it was a note that we got or if it was an email. I don't know. I don't remember how the message was delivered, but we were moving their advertising department and the sales department back to our original building. And so, and we were feeling a little kind of hurt by that we were getting removed from the rest of the company, but we were running out of room, which is the good news. And so I
So
was
we outgrew one
feeling bad.
building. So we outgrew one building and we moved into a second building.
Yeah, we were in that big long building in Commerce Parkway, ran out of room. And so while we were moving, some of us were parking our cars in the visitor parking spaces to carry stuff out of our car into the building. And we got a message that was not exhibiting a fanatical commitment to customer service, even though we didn't have any customers coming into the building. So of course, I was mad and my feelings were hurt. And I was also wanted to explain, why it was being, why we were doing that. And the bottom line was that we shouldn't be parking in the customer parking lot. So it was that was a very dramatic and very important um turning point in our relationship. I think we came to an understanding that that you do things for a reason, and no matter what I think or anybody else thought, you still are the boss. And those are the kinds of things that um and believe me, I'm not mad anymore. So don't
Good.
think I am.
32 years later, thank heaven.
But so that that was a really pivotal point in my career with you and with my career in general.
Do you think it would be valuable to talk about the TV advertising and Oprah
Oh
Winfrey?
no, oh my gosh, I forgot about that one. Here's my advice to everyone, no matter what you do, what your job is, or what you do. Whenever you have an idea or you want to do something, always remember to test it before you spend money. Test
And back to
everything.
the bus card and the TV situation. Each time we had a disagreement, I gave you a chance to prove yourself. I didn't
Yeah.
just I didn't just say, no, Martha, you're wrong. The bus cards are are lousy and you have to go change it. Because that is difficult to maintain a great relationship going forward if I just arbitrarily say, I ignore your advice, I'm not going to listen, and just go change it. So I have to say that I think that's an important part of management, that you give people a chance to prove themselves. And along came the TV situation.
Are you going to tell it?
No, would you rather not tell it? I mean,
Oh, no, I don't
go
care.
ahead. Tell
I
them
mean,
what happened.
I think it's pretty well, common knowledge amongst most people that work with us, because I think that story's been told several times. But we did a TV ad, and it was a bunch of guys playing pool, and they were talking about getting their refund in whatever the time frame was, let's say 2 days or less. And one guy says, "You got your refund, your use of your refund in 2 days or less?" And the guy said, "Yes." And the guy who said, "You got your refund in 2 days or less," said, "Well, if that's the truth, then I'm the Queen of England." And you hear da 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 da, and you shoot back to the guy that had made that remark, and he's got a crown on his head. But the other guy that responded originally said, it's very hard to explain this, but he said the last line of the TV ad was, "Nice tiara." And people didn't understand what that meant. And we were running the spots, and the phones weren't ringing. And we had run spots again the year before, and the phones were ringing. And so we did a test, and I want to say that it was on WGN in Chicago, which at the time had national coverage, like kind of like a TBS.
As I recall, it was on Oprah Winfrey on WGN.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's make it worse. Okay. So it was a big audience, and we ran one spot, and the tiara spot, as it's famously known now. And the phones didn't ring. I think we might have gotten one or two calls, but
we
then
got one call, it was the wrong number.
Now, see, that's what I love about the storytelling.
That's the way I tell the story.
I know you do. But anyway, so we ran the next spot, and the phone started ringing. So once again, I just want to tell you all that I am very, very educated because, there's been other things like that, most of them not quite as bad, not quite as easy to prove, but there's always a test.
Do you remember Me Too?
Oh, yes.
And do you remember how we invented Me Too?
Uh-huh.
Tell them about the Me Too. I thought the Me Too was the best one ever.
I know.
And I would like to use that for ATAX.
We could do that. We could use it for a lot of things.
Well, how did we invent Me Too, the Me Too commercial?
I don't remember the guy's name. You probably do. I think his
probably
first name was
Kukler or Kim Hughes.
Oh, I think it was a guy from Montgomery Ward, Paul.
That's right. He told the story. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were at our
But I was talking about which office it happened in.
Yeah, yeah. So he was telling us this story, and this was at our national convention that year, and he was telling this story that two people in the office at the Montgomery Ward store, we had kiosks there, and one guy said, I just got a check for use of my refund in just 2 days. And the other guy said, "Me too." And the guy said, "Yeah, and it was so fast and it was so easy." But I'm making this up because I don't remember what the words were, but he said, "People were so nice. I really like coming here." And the other guy said, in a more exaggerated way, "Me too." And then the next thing was something like, "I think Jackson Hewitt is the best tax service ever." And the final Me Too was like, "Me too." And I mean, we got a lot of flack for that. If you remember, I remember a particular dinner with the board of directors one time where I had to defend that, but I think you're right. I know you're right that that was, I believe, the most successful ad that we ever did. And it was really easy to do, no hocus pocus, not, nothing special. And I believe that that was the best television ad that we ever had.
And I think so many people get on their high horse, and it's sort of the same thing with the costume character, right? That some people say, I would never go to I would never have my tax return done by someone that had a costume character out in front of their office. And I'm sure our competitors must think that. I mean, that's why H&R Block has never really done it to any extent, because I'm sure they think that it's beneath them, and it turns off some people. Well, there's no doubt that anything you do is going to turn off someone. And there's no doubt that you can build a Fortune 500 company, and with only 13% market share, and we'll call that H&R Block. You're at 13% market share is only about 1 out of every 8 people that pay a preparer go to H&R Block, and it's a Fortune 500 company that nets $500 million a year and has $1 billion in the bank. So you can't be all things to all people, and it's okay to turn some people off. It's okay.
Right. And we never stopped doing that. And we continue to do it. And you know what's happened since then. They've changed the logo, and the Statue of Liberty no longer really represents Liberty Tax Service like it did for all the years that we were there. And the other thing is, as far as a mascot or a costume character, that was such a perfect fit. I mean, it's patriotic, it was fun, it attracted attention, and there was synergy between the actual costume character and the name of the business. And most people even today don't have that.
Did we ever agree who invented that, me or you?
I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday who used to work for us for many, many years. We talked about that, and I decided I wasn't going to say whose idea.
So there may, at least part of you disagrees with me having invented that concept.
Right. Well, the person that I was talking to actually remembered the scenario that I remembered, but who cares? It works.
So let's talk about the lesson of, it was horrible news and great news when we left Jackson Hewitt, right? Do you remember the conversation we had when I was leaving and you were thinking of staying, and what you told me?
Did you just put a knife in my heart? I don't know that this has ever been, publicly talked about, but yes, I remember exactly what I said, and I remember exactly where we were actually and who we were getting ready to meet. But anyway, do you want me to tell it, or do you want to tell it?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we were at a restaurant waiting for our insurance guy to talk about, what kind of health insurance and what have you we were going to have at Liberty. And we were sitting there, and John said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know what to do, because this is my identity. This is who I am. I'm the director of communications at Jackson Hewitt. And I feel like part of me will be ripped out of me if I leave, because I was loyal to Jackson Hewitt, certainly not loyal to the new regime that was coming in, but I was loyal to the brand, and I was loyal to the franchisees. And so that's that story. And ultimately, it didn't take too long before I made up my mind that I was going to leave, and I did in fact leave. Wasn't that long, but in my heart, I knew that that wasn't right for me, and that where I needed to be, where I have the place where I had learned all these lessons, and some of my dear friends had already made the decision to leave, and so I had to really, I had to search my soul, but it didn't take very long. But that's how I felt at that moment in that time.
And it was horrific in losing our company that we had built, and that was $500 million company went on to become $1 billion company. But we got a chance to do it all over again. And now that we had learned all those lessons, and my theory is that, if in my case you were there for about 10 years, but I was there for 15 years, and if you learn and grow something for 15 years and you get to start all over again, you have to be an idiot not to do it better. And so there, the three of us, do you remember the group that sat, and where we came up with a top 10 list? Was it top 10 list or just a list
Well,
of things we were going to do better this next time?
I think it was 10, was started as 10, but it ended up being maybe 12 or 13 by the time we were finished. And yes, I remember very clearly. It was you and me and Jack Seal, and we were in San Diego, and we were in Old Town, San Diego, and
Were there
having
margaritas involved?
one or two, but not because it was the middle of the day, so it wasn't that many. And that's when we came up with what we were going to do different. And most of them were very, very valuable, and things that we adhered to and were able to achieve. And some of them were, kind of pipe dreams. And if we had been able to achieve all of that, it would have been fantastic. But the fact that we were able to do that, and do that as quickly as we did, I think is really points to that list of principles, and how we were going to grow this company, and the vision was very clear. And the other thing is, that, and this I had kind of forgotten in the original scenario, but the people that came in after you, and while I was still there, which I think was only about a month, I don't think it was very long, but it became very, very clear to me that this was not going to be the kind of company that I wanted to work for, because of the people. And that is really, you know, the $1,000 answer is, there's just $1,000,000 answer actually. There is really just no way you can operate in an organization where the people don't believe in, the values that we had set forth, and the way that we treated employees, and the things that we wanted to accomplish. And luckily, Liberty provided all of that and more.
Yeah, I think I left on. I cleaned my office out on Labor Day,
It was
and
my birthday.
and was it?
Yep.
And I went in and uh, resigned the next morning. And you came probably in November maybe.
Yeah, because that event in San Diego took place in October, the end of October. So
Oh,
it was very shortly after that.
so, do you remember any of the 10? I remember the most important one. That in my book I talk about one of the second biggest mistake I ever made at Jackson Hewitt was not franchising from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of the list was franchise immediately, franchise as many high percentage of locations as we can, because as we've learned, you and I've learned over the years, franchisees always do a better job on average than company employees, because they act like owners. And while you strive to get employees that act like owners. Less than 5% of employees act like owners.
Well, one of
So
the other things you did, John, was at Liberty, and this didn't happen at Jackson Hewitt, but at Liberty, you gave employees a chance to act like owners by providing, the ability to buy a franchise or the ability to become an area developer and, to still continue to work for Liberty. And you created a lot of entrepreneurs that way, lots of them.
yeah, it's a difficult decision whether you can have one of your employees acquire a franchise, and now they're have two jobs and they're conflicted. And so, but my thinking was eventually that it's better to have a great franchisee than a good employee.
Mhm.
And so, and it also, it actually made the employees more committed, and they understood the franchisees more. One of the toughest things to do is, even if you're fanatical like I am and you want to do what's best for every person, and every franchisee and every employee and everyone, well, it's hard to pass that along to your staff. They just don't get it, and they will undermine you by creating rules that that they think that saves them time. They don't have to think outside the box. There's a rule. So one of them, for example, created a rule that about, you remember John Balke in California, who became second biggest franchise in the country. He had, after his second year, he had one good office the first year and a second good office the second year, top 1%, 2% best franchise growth in the country. And he had a territory of about 6 territories, and he had only opened 2 of them. And there was a chance to acquire 2 poorly run offices about half hour away that he wanted to take over and improve. And the franchise support said, no, you can't do that until you develop your other 4 territories. So because that seemed like a nice rule, seemed like there is some logic to that. But on the other hand, you got this great performer who's can take these other 2 offices and explode them while he continues to build his first 2. And so John came to me when I was in California. We had dinner and explained the situation. I said, absolutely, I'll let you acquire those other 2 offices. Makes sense that, and you can it's more beneficial to the company to take an office that is doing 400 returns to 1,000 than take a typical first year office and go from 0 to 500. And someone didn't put the time or the thought into that. So you have to be careful that not to let your people undermine you. What type of employee situations any employee situations come to mind that were stellar or to be avoided in your management career? Who are your best 2 or 3 people?
Well, Danny Murphy, that was Jackson Hewitt. And at Liberty, David Schaefer, he was brilliant and on the cutting edge of digital marketing, which I don't think any of us realized the power of it at that point in time. And Amy,
back to each of them, with each of them, what kind of different skills did they have that offset your skills or weaknesses?
Well, Danny was just very, very efficient. I mean, he could get anything done in the time allotted, and most of the time, exceeded, what the deadline was. And he was just a really good hard worker. but also a great person. I mean, we always had a lot of fun in that department.
Was he a renegade at all?
I don't think so.
He was towed the line and was a soldier, a good soldier.
Yep, I thought so. Now, Schaefer, on the other hand, was not a toe the line guy. He was like going to win the tug of war, and he again, I always got along with him. In fact, I've just communicated with him just recently. But he he knew what he wanted, and he just didn't have um, the communication skills to make people want to work for him. They were the people that worked for him didn't like him.
Do you remember how we found him?
Yeah, he came in with well, I don't remember what company he was working for at the time, but he came in with a girl that was trying to sell us something, a local girl, and he was the kind of like the guy from corporate that came along with her. And I remember thinking that after we left that meeting that we needed to hire that guy because he's just a very impressive presenter. But he backed everything up with deep, deep knowledge of the job that he was hired to do, which was to bring us into the digital marketing age. And I learned a lot from him. And one of the things that I learned from him was that you can't sit still, in marketing or operations or accounting, no matter what, you can't sit still and rest on your laurels and wait to figure out what the next best thing is. You have to go out and find the next best thing and bring it into the company. And that's what he did. And that's what I learned from him.
And so we hired him the same way I found you.
Yeah.
We took him out of his agency. He came in as a vendor and eventually became an employee.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have other examples in your career where you've seen us go out into the community and find people like a waitress, a waiter, a vendor, who you remember?
Well, I remember a lot of people that knew other people that brought them into the company, and two that I can point out are Eric Van Horn and Amy Warkamp, now Amy Lips. And I just read that she was promoted to the vice president of franchise development for the company that she is working for, but she also owns franchises with that company. And we just saw her a couple weeks ago, and she's very impressive. And of course, Eric, is doing lots of great things too. So a lot of it has to do with people bringing other people into the company that they know and know their capabilities. So,
They they went to same church, and you remember other people they brought in from that church group?
I don't know. It was the guy,
And
Jeremy, was he part of that
yeah,
group? Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I'm not sure if I think Kelly Wyatt was part of that group, and Chris Davis was part of that group. Attorney Kelly was a franchise development person, and I think my memory was that Kelly ran into Jeremy at a Wendy's and struck up a conversation and said, "You got to talk to this guy."
Mm-hmm.
And we got Jim Ferguson from his sister,
Mm-hmm.
right, Anne Marie,
Mm-hmm.
and we got Jeff Sharp from a friend of a friend. I mean, and then Jeff Sharp brought in, oh no, then Anne Marie brought in her brother, and then her brother brought in
Taylor.
Taylor, and then Taylor brought in someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the lesson learned is it's so tough to get employees in this, it's getting tougher and tougher in the 21st century. But to fit into the culture, your current staff, whether it's in a church group, a relative, a brother, sister, a friend, they already know the culture. and they know whether someone's going to fit in the culture. So talk about last topic, talk about our culture at Jackson Hewitt and then Liberty, and how we developed it and maintained it.
Well, the culture at Jackson Hewitt was kind of, was already there, because of you and the growth. But I think the turning point there was when we brought Management 2000 in, and Bob Gappa, and we had that retreat, and we developed our mission statement, winning customers for life. And that was our first set of principles that we developed at that retreat back in, I think, 1992. And it was imperative that everyone bought into that. And so we had the posters all over the place, and everybody had the mission statement and the principles in their office. And there were a lot of things that we developed, the mission moments and things like that. And I think the most fun thing about both companies, I don't see it too much yet at Loyalty, but I think we could probably get it started if we had to, was the number of dollar bills that people posted on their wall that they won from you. I mean, that was just like, winning a dollar from you was like, winning $1 million, in terms of, building culture and having fun. And what's even better than winning $1 from you? Winning $11 from you
Yeah,
on
you're the
football.
only one that won $11.
Well, I had to bring that up. I mean, you brought up, a lot of things that needed to be revisited, and that was those were one of the defining moments of my career.
People are going to be dying to know why I lost $11.
You better tell them. I'm not telling them.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. It's Buffalo Bills' first Super Bowl, and they were about a 7-point favorite, at least a 7-point favorite over Martha's Giants. And so I made the mistake of betting $1, given the points, and I gave her 10-1 odds that Buffalo would win outright. And of course, the first of 4 Super Bowls that Buffalo Bills lost in a row, it was wide right, missed that short field goal at the end of the game that would have won the Super Bowl. So Martha got $11 from me. I only usually bet $1 at a time. And people would ask me, Martha, they would ask me why I don't have all the dollars I won posted in my office. And you know what my answer was? I was on the second floor at Jackson Hewitt, and I said, because if I posted all the dollars on the wall, my office would collapse and fall onto the first floor because there were so many of them.
Well, so it is, but the point is that I did win $11 at one time, and that makes me the champion there.
So if you could name the biggest improvement from 1987 till 2024 in yourself, business-wise, big 1, 2, or 3 improvements, what would they be?
Well, certainly, I was really, really young back then. And one of the things that you did for me was to introduce me to Dale Carnegie. And I took that course and really excelled at that, the Winning Friends and Influencing People course, because you had to get up every week and give a pretty much an ad lib talk based upon whatever the topic was. And at the end of that, they invited me back to be a graduate assistant because I really excelled at that. I mean, I was really, really like taken with the whole concept. And so that, I believe, helped me become more confident in the way that I spoke and the speaking that I was willing to do. I remember one time I had to speak at one of the stockholder meetings, And I was scared to death. And Jack Seal has always told me that it was the best speech he ever heard. But it was about even better than ones that you've given. But I was talking about being a cheerleader for the company and how great it was to have that job. And he said, you were so enthusiastic. And I told him, I said, Jack, you cannot believe how nervous I was. I said, my knees were knocking, beneath the podium because I was so scared. But because of Dale Carnegie, that's given me the ability to continue to go on. And, I've led panels at the IFA, and I've spoken at, lots of different conferences and always get, pretty good reviews. I don't like to brag, but, they're usually almost great. Um, but that to me was the kind of the defining point in my career, that I knew that I could do that, and I could be good at it, and I could be effective and help people. And so that's number one, and number two, and maybe number three. I mean, there's lots of things that that I've learned. I've learned to also be a little bit less defensive, although I still have my moments, which was a big problem in the beginning. So, but yeah, overall, I can't say enough good things about my life and my career since I began working with you and with Jackson Hewitt, and Liberty, especially because that was just so much fun. Um, and now this company is turning into just just the same kind of thing that we had at Liberty. And that with Zuman Grumman and Sandy and her crew, and ATAX, and the all the other brands that we have. It's just pretty amazing, you know, three in a row. So
And what's our mission statement?
having fun, improving lives.
And do we try?
I think we try, but I think we do a pretty good job, because again, it's one of the things that is always so fulfilling for me is when I hear franchisees talking to you about, what you've done for them and how you've helped them, and how the company has helped them, not just at Loyalty, but the other companies as well. I mean, it's really nice to be part of something like that. I don't think a lot of people in their life and in their career get the opportunity to have that kind of emotional connection to, to what they're doing, and who they're helping, and who they're meeting on a daily basis. So um, I think we do a great job of that.
Thank you for your time
Well, thank you very
and
much. I
for
was
all
very
these years.
honored to be here.
And thank everyone for listening, and have a wonderful day. Bye now.